guys, is anybody else a little bit terrified by the fact that it's already June? Okay, I'm gonna try and be positive about it. This year's going crazy fast, but I am excited to have a little bit of summer sunshine on the go, and obviously because it's the beginning of June, I am here to tell you about the books that I read in the second half of May. If you're interested in the books I read in the first half of May, I do have a mid-month wrap up for the month of May that I'll link down below, but I did then continue to read more books, some really excellent books in fact, in the second half of the month. So I'm here to give you reviews and summarise my feelings for those books here. But before I jump into the reviews, I just wanted to say a big thank you to Skillshare, who are sponsoring this video. If you're not already aware, Skillshare is an online learning platform which is full to bursting with incredible classes on various different techniques and skills, from creative writing to knitting to business skills. There's something on there for everybody, and it's a site I've become a big fan of since Skillshare first got in contact with me. And recently I've been really enjoying watching a series of original videos that Skillshare has commissioned with authors, sharing their advice on different aspects of writing. They have videos by authors including Saba Tahir, and my particular favourite so far, Roxane Gay. Roxane Gay has an incredible class on there about crafting personal essays, and I find such joy in writing both fiction and non-fiction and different kinds of non-fiction, and I've been trying to be more experimental in my writing and just flex my writing muscles recently. So I really enjoyed hearing about that kind of genre and getting advice on sort of giving it a shot myself. So that is a video I would highly recommend giving a watch, because I also love Roxane Gay. I've read a lot of her essays and really enjoyed them in the past, so I trust her to give me advice on writing personal essays. But if you would like access to their more than 25,000 classes, then an annual subscription to Skillshare costs less than $10 a month. And if you'd like to check out the video that I have just mentioned, the first 500 of you to use the link down in the description box get a free 2-month trial to sort of like get a taste for everything that is on there. But without further ado, let's get into the books I read in the second half of May. I'll start off with the two books I had physical copies of, and the first one is Feminism for the 99%, a Manifesto by Cinzia Arruzza, Tithi Bhattacharya and Nancy Fraser. This is quite a small little book. I didn't actually realise how small it was when I bought it, but Verso were having a sale, who are the publishers, during May Day for 50% off, so I couldn't resist. It comes in at 85 pages, so it is a perfect little discursive piece of feminist literature, and I really enjoyed this. I actually plan on doing a video later this month about sort of feminist literature starter kits, so kind of the best bits of feminist literature, in my opinion, that give you like a broad view of different topics that are related to feminism, and that you can read all together. Because I don't think there's just like one book that can tell you everything you need to about feminism. That it would worry me if there was only one. But I really liked the angle of this book. So this book is very much taking what they're calling feminism for the 99%, but I would quite happily have previously referred to sort of like socialist feminism or sort of anti-capitalist feminism. The very last sentence of the blurb says feminism must be anti-capitalist, eco-socialist and anti-racist, and they explain why and what aspects of feminism need to sort of be reworked. I say reworked, this isn't a new idea, but I think it's an idea that kind of rose up in the 20th century amongst women and then got kind of put on the back burner a little bit by more capitalist geared feminism, which prioritizes individuals above like groups and the community as a whole, or humanity as a whole. I'm not sure you can ever separate capitalism and individualism, and that's also led to this form of feminism, which I think is sometimes branded as sort of lean-in feminism, which is all about like individual women gaining power within a system that is corrupt, and just like becoming as powerful or as wealthy or as high up in companies as men already are, yet still those companies or whatever are incredibly exploitative, and that means that there's all these other women working in like sweatshops. So That is not my kind of feminism. This is my kind of feminism, and I really liked that I was reading a book that is very current and very modern that was taking on this kind of feminism and emphasising the importance of it. Although I'm not going to lie to you, I think if you have absolutely no familiarity with any sort of like socialist, anti-capitalist, Marxist theory, there will be little bits that you don't follow initially, and that's not to say the book as a whole you wouldn't follow, but there is a lot of language used throughout the book that is very steeped in sort of Marxism. Terms like the proletariat, which lots of you I'm sure are familiar with, but fairly lots of you probably aren't familiar with, so it can verge on the academic side on occasion, but I don't think that's a reason not to read this book. I think that's just all the more reason to read this book and then look up those terms and kind of expand beyond this book and learn a little bit from it. I certainly don't think it achieves everything that could be discussed within this topic. It's a short book, but I think it does a really good job of kind of setting the main points out for you, and I really, really liked it and would recommend it to pretty much everyone, yeah. And you'll probably be seeing this in my feminist literature starter kit. But then I have a fiction book, a YA fiction book, so a little bit different side of things, and that is Devouring Green by Christine Lynn Herman. This one was sent to me by the publishers for review, and this is just like a fast-paced, good, fun page turner, and that's kind of what I look for in my young adult literature. It was compared to Stranger Things, which is why I was initially drawn to it. In lots of ways it's not like Stranger Things, it's not set in the 80s, but at the same time I get why the comparison has been made, because it is set in this town that our first protagonist, there's actually like 4 different perspectives in the story, but our initial protagonist just moves to this town where her mum actually grew up, but she's never been to before. However, recently her sister has died, her twin sister, and she'd already lost her father when she was very young, so it's just her and her mum now, and they've come back to this town her mum grew up in, where there is something weird going on. There's this creature or presence, this beast living in what is called the Grey, which is sort of like a parallel world running parallel to this town, and it's a prison that was created by the founders of this town to trap this beast. And she is actually a descendant of one of the founding families, and then we follow a member, a teenager from each of the other 4 founding families, so 4 in total, sorry, including that initial character. And she's kind of dragged into the weird stuff going on in this town. And it's just good fun. Like I mentioned, it was such a fast book to read. I really just zoomed through it. And personally, I kind of loved that like basically every second character in this is bisexual. It's like, yeah, awesome. I thought that was really cool. I just don't think you see a lot of sort of like casual inclusion of bisexual characters, it not being a massive big deal and it not just being one tokenistic character. I liked that there was like multiple characters that were bisexual. I thought that was good. I did like that. What I didn't realise before I started this though is that it's actually the first in a series, I think, so there's going to be more. I totally thought I was picking up a sort of like paranormal thriller standalone YA, but nope, it's the first in a series, although things definitely culminate at the end of this book. It's not a dissatisfying ending, but I think I'll definitely check out the next book when it comes out to see what happens. Another non-fiction book I read was Men We Reaped by Jesmyn Ward. This is Jesmyn Ward's autobiography or memoir. It's such an interesting term to use because it's not what I'm used to from the memoir or autobiography genre. Jesmyn Ward is a writer, she writes fiction. I've previously read her novel Salvage the Bones, and I know her novel Sing Unburied Sing got a lot of praise and was shortlisted for some awards, so you might have heard of her because of those. But like I mentioned, this is her sort of memoir, and I think the reason I'm saying sort of is because it's very, very much structured around the men in her life, the impact these men had on her life, the journeys she took with these men, the lives these men led, and her observation of them as outsiders before they all died. These are all black men, family or friends who died relatively young, and how the death of these men is so central to her life and also her community and her family and everybody she knows, and how, I mean, painfully common it is for young black men to die from various different sort of circumstances arising from kind of like racial prejudice in societies. This wasn't entirely what I expected, because although I knew that, I still expected it to be more of like a chronological, I was 1 and then I was 30 and this is what happened in between and these are the people that died. But it's more jumpy than that, so she goes backwards and forwards to different ages and instead focuses on like one man at a time. So she'll be like a child and she'll be a child and exploring her relationship with her brother until her brother passes away, then perhaps her cousin, and then again re-exploring herself growing up during her relationship with her cousin. And in some instances that meant I felt at a little bit of a distance from her. I just think because of that jumpy style, but at the same time I think this was a very impactful read. It's like no other memoir that I have read before, and it very much continued the beautiful writing style that I have come to expect from reading Jesmyn Ward's fiction. And it was really interesting because I felt like there was little elements of her life that I could see where they had then influenced Salvage the Bones, like the added layer that it lent to her fiction as well. So I think if you like her fiction you'll like this, but I also just think if you like kind of memoirs that explore like the impact of death, the impact of racism, but also someone's personal journey growing up in America, then I think you will like this. 2 more books though, and they are both fiction. So the first one is a book that I read on my Kindle, and that is Hear the World Entire by Anwen Hayward. So this is a novella, and it is a retelling of the myth of Medusa. And I have never read a retelling of Medusa before, but I was so excited to read this one because I think the myth of Medusa is so like misrepresented in modern media and popular culture. Like if I think of I mean, this is a 20th century film, but if I think of like the original Clash of the Titans, and lots of just other depictions of Medusa, she's a monster, she's just this monster. But in myth, she's this woman that something terrible happens to, and heads up, this book does deal with sexual violence because she is the victim of an act of sexual violence, and then is cursed, I guess, by another god. Basically for having been the victim of sexual violence. It's brutal and it's horrendous, and I don't think that aspect of the myth is talked about enough. And I love the way that Anwen explored what Medusa's own feelings potentially would have been to this whole scenario, and how she would have felt even once she'd been turned into this monster who couldn't look upon other humans or she would turn them to stone. So she just has the most tragic story, I always think, and I just thought it was so wonderful to see somebody give her a voice in a way that I don't think really exists in the ancient literature, but I think her story deserves to be told from her side of things more often, and I really enjoyed that about this. This is Anwen's first published novella, although I believe she's working on other things. She often shares things, bits of writing on her Tumblr, and she's actually going to be on my podcast in the coming weeks. We're going to discuss her research because she's also a PhD student, as well as her writing career and the myth of Medusa. So do stay tuned for that over on That's Ancient History, which is my podcast. But yeah, I think if you like ancient myth retellings, if you like retellings kind of like exploring the female voices of old stories, then you will really enjoy this. And then lastly, we have The Lost Art of Sinking by Naomi Booth, and this is another novella. I mean, the only way I'm going to read this much is if some of them are short. But this author, I actually read my first book by about a month or 2 ago, called Sealed, which was a kind of literary apocalyptic horror book that I loved. It was incredibly well written. I will find the video where I review that and link it down below, because this is not a review of Sealed, but because I loved that book so much, I checked and my library had her other book, The Lost Art of Sinking, so obviously I had to read it. I enjoyed this. I think Sealed is still my favourite, and that's just the nature of it. Reading multiple books by the same author, you tend to compare them. So Sealed's still my favourite, but I still enjoy The Lost Art of Sinking. It's very different in many ways, but also still retains the beautiful writing of Sealed. And I think she actually had an opportunity to use her beautiful writing skills in a new way in this story, because it was such a different story. And I really like that. It is about a girl growing up and becoming a woman, and she is the daughter of a sort of once famous ballet dancer, and when she is at school, her mother dies after having been ill for quite a long time, and she had quite a strained relationship with her mother. Her mother was kind of never got over the fact that her ballet career didn't take the trajectory that it could have, and that things didn't continue the way that they started, and that her daughter wasn't then good at ballet, so they kind of had that strained relationship because of that. And she would just sort of give her daughter strange advice and say strange things to her, but equally that relationship and also the grief after losing her mother affects her, and she gets really into asphyxiation. So it starts off playing this game with girls in her school where they all like take little breaths until they like hold their breath and try and pass out or faint. I think it's called the fainting game, they call it. And the idea that it gives you some sort of head rush. And whilst it's just a game for her friends who then never do it again a few weeks later, she continues to try different forms of asphyxiation throughout her life. So she practices and practices, and she describes herself as becoming very good at it, in that she can make herself faint quite easily. Obviously it's not actually a good thing, but she sees it as a skill that she has honed, and she sort of asphyxiates herself in different circumstances throughout her life, and that becomes like this coping mechanism, I guess. And people think she's quite strange and she doesn't have a lot of like positive relationships in her life, and we're basically just following her story and her obsession with asphyxiation. It's not like super heavy on the plot, it's far more of like an interesting character exploration written in beautiful prose. I wouldn't read it for the plot's not really there. It's not like there's like this beginning, this peak in the middle, and then this like climactic ending. It's very much about like getting inside this character's head. But I'm definitely going to be reading everything that Naomi Booth writes because I love her writing. But those are all the books that I read in the second half of May. I would love to hear from you if you have read any of them or are interested in reading any of them, so we can chat about them down below. And once again, thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to use the link down below because, as I mentioned, the first 500 people to use it will get a 2-month free trial, a good opportunity to try out lots of their fun classes. And until next time, happy reading. I'll see you all again soon. Bye guys!